And this is part 3 and the final part of my Elementary and GTK tutorial series. I know in my previous 2 videos I said that this was only going to be a 2-video series, but I know you guys really like the series, and there's one last GTK technology that I want to touch upon. It's Vala's sister language called Genie. Now before we dive into Genie, there's a few things I want to point out. First off, this series has been sort of slanted towards ElementaryOS, which is a distribution that uses Pantheon, which is written using GTK. All ElementaryOS applications are written in Vala, and the documentation is written for Vala. Now Genie is a sister language of Vala. They look and act somewhat similar, but they are 2 different languages. Genie is far less popular than Vala, and Vala isn't even very popular to begin with. So there's not a huge amount of community support or official documentation on Genie, so that is something to consider if you want to explore Genie. So let's go ahead and open some code and see what Genie's all about. Now, like the last 2 videos, make sure that you have the Elementary SDK or the equivalent packages installed. You'll obviously need the Vala compiler, but you'll also need whatever GTK development packages that are required by your distribution. Now this is the Vala code we wrote in the first video. It's a very simple GTK application, and all it does is spawn a window with a button in the center of it. The only thing I changed for this video is the text on the button. It says Hello Vala now. Now notice that new file extension .gs? That's a Genie file. So when we put the 2 files side by side, you'll see that the code looks remarkably similar. Now at first you might think that it looks like Python because it uses tabs instead of curly braces. But instead of Python, Genie is actually more inspired by a .NET language called Boo. Now the Boo language is more or less deprecated, but if you look at the code, you can definitely see the resemblance. Now obviously the biggest difference between Genie and Vala is the usage of tabs or spaces versus curly braces. You see in the editor those little arrows? Those are tabs, and you can see that the editor automatically indents and creates more tabs. Regular white space in the editor just looks like dots. Now keep in mind that these aren't real dots, they're just shown by the editor to show the developer where your indentation is. Unfortunately for languages that use tabs and white spaces for blocks, you can't mix and match them. Generally the compiler is set to use one or the other, and if you mix and match them, then the compiler kind of breaks down. So a really interesting thing about Genie is that it uses the Vala compiler. You see here to compile the Genie program, we use the Vala compiler and pass in the GTK package just like the Vala program. And when we launch the program, you see that the button says Hello Genie. And all we have to do is change the file extension, and now we've compiled our Vala program. And that's going to wrap this video up. So don't let the lack of interest from the community keep you from exploring Genie. Genie and Vala share the same API, and as long as Vala is still supported, Genie will also be supported. Some people just like whitespace delimited programming languages, and that's cool. With the GTK languages, you can have Vala, which uses curly braces, and Genie, which uses whitespaces. So if you want to learn more about Vala and Genie, I've uploaded all of the code I've written in these tutorials to my GitHub. The project is called GTK Languages, and feel free to use this sample code as a base for your own applications. There's not really much here, but hey, it may be enough to get you started. So if you like this video and other videos on my channel, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. I appreciate your support, and thanks for watching.